welcome back to the Save the Frogs World Summit 2022. We've got Andrie A. Flores from the Philippines here, and he is a Save the Frogs scholarship recipient and volunteer. And if you go to Save the Frogs Academy, go to the Philippines course, there's a downloadable poster that he created, or maybe it's A4, 8.5 by 11, with a bunch of frogs, endemic frogs of Mindanao in the Philippines. So go check that out. I'll put the link in the chat here. All right, Andrie, tell us about status and challenges in Philippine amphibian diversity and conservation, please.
So in this presentation, I will talk to you about the status and challenges of Philippine amphibian diversity and conservation. So the Philippines is considered as a megadiverse country and the center of the megadiversity in the world. It is also considered as the second largest archipelago next to Indonesia and divided into different Pleistocene aggregate island complexes. So this includes Luzon, Paik region, Mindoro, Palawan, Visayan, and then Mindanao and Hulo and Tawi-Tawi. So these Paik regions harbors many endemic species that can be found in the specific locality. So apart from megadiverse countries, the Philippines is also considered as a hotspot, meaning that there are threatened or there are more threatened species. So it is considered as also one of the most important centers of amphibians in Southeast Asia. And then by taxa, we can see that amphibians has the highest number of endemic species or the highest percentage of endemic species in the Philippines as compared to other taxas such as reptiles, plants, mammals, birds, and freshwater fishes. To date, there are a total of 112 species of frogs and 94 of which are endemic, and other species still awaits discovery, and 18 species are non-endemics or introduced species. So these are some of the Philippine frogs that I have personally encountered and taken photograph of. So we can see that frogs have varied microhabitats. They can be seen in arboreal microhabitats, stream microhabitats, and then the ground microhabitats. So these are the threats to Philippine frogs. So first is the slash and burn. So we locally call this kaingin, illegal logging, and then next is agricultural expansion, climate change, pollution, hunting, the wildlife diseases, and of course the invasive alien species. So slash and burn involves burning of the forest ecosystem or crops in order for them to plant another crop. So this is common on corn and sugarcane. So after harvesting, they burn the agricultural crops in order to plant anew. So this affects the frog by displacing them, and of course, it can cause soil erosion and landslide on the forest, and then eventually leads to drought. And then illegal logging. So this is also common to in the Philippines, from which they cut down trees and then cut down trees in protected areas and even on a forest. And then this displays the frogs and also loss of biodiversity, since frogs are not the only ones that are adapt or that depends on the trees for survival. So the effect of illegal logging has it affects the forest ecosystem by adding more canopy or adding open canopy to the forest. So this can affect the frogs because frogs rely on the environment for survival, and of course it causes environmental hazards. Being trees is one of the carbon stock in earth, and then it destroys livelihood of many Filipinos. So agricultural expansion is also common here in the Philippines because the Philippines is an agricultural country. They tend to extend to the forest ecosystem for agriculture, and also this displays frogs, also loss of biodiversity because some frogs are only forest dependent or they can only survive in the forest ecosystem and also causes pollution. So as you can see in the third picture, pesticides is spray in the forest or in the agricultural ecosystem or the agricultural crops. So if they spray it, it can affect frogs, of course, because of the toxins that the pesticides have, and also it fragments forest ecosystem. Next is climate change. So this is a problem worldwide. However, in the Philippines, the Philippines being an archipelago and near the equator, it generally affects more species, and the vulnerability of Philippine amphibians of climate change has been published, given that the effect of climate change on frogs is inevitable. So it states that frogs can become threatened in the years to come because of the changing climate. So next is pollution. So pollution can be brought by mining and of course the anthropocene or the throwing of garbage in the rivers and streams. So this displays also uh, frogs and endanger them in their habitat. And this is also common in different localities here in the Philippines. So this picture is a Lemnonectes magnus, which is considered to be a near threatened species here in the Philippines, and this can only be found in Mindanao Island. So this is also a source of food for many locals here in the Philippines. So the status of this is raised to near threatened. So it endangered frog species, affects environmental stability because they are also natural prey item for numerous species on the forest. And of course, it affects the food web because of this imbalance of the ecosystem and harvesting of the frogs from the natural habitat. And of course, frog diseases. So this is also common worldwide, wherein they have documented that chytridiomycosis caused by the BD fungi is occurring worldwide. So this causes death of the frogs. In the Philippines, however, it is still being studied and is understudied because of um, the lack of attention of frogs. And in this picture, you can see the Rockophorus maculatus, which is a Mindanao endemic species. So this frog has a positive um, is positive to the deadly fungi, and numerous species of frog is still being studied because of the BD fungi. Next is the invasive alien species. So I have put here some pictures of the invasive species of frogs in the Philippines. So the common Rhinella marina, Lobatrachus rugolosus, Calula pulchra, Hylarana erythrea, the Eleutherodactylus planirostris, Etobatis capisbenus. So of course, this displays the frogs, and of course, they compete with the endemic species of frogs in the area. So this would lack and loss. This would affect the lack and loss of the resources of our native species. So the status of frog research in the Philippines. So numerous published articles have been made into action, especially on the checklist of frogs from different localities. So we have here the amphibians of the Philippines, the checklist of the species, on which I have shown in the previous slides. So this involves photographic checklist in order for us to identify the different species of frogs in the field, and they have also discovered new species from different parts of the Philippines, especially on the genus Platymantis, and then the rediscovery. So this paper is one of the most notable rediscovery paper that have been published in the Philippines because this paper acknowledges or more people have been reached in the Philippines in the effort to get to know and of course conservation of frogs in the Philippines. So let me leave a note. So don't be a fish, be a frog, swim in the water and jump when you hit ground. So this is by Kim Yung Han. So thank you for listening. So you can connect with Save the Frogs in the SaveTheFrogs.com, and you can donate um, at the Save the Frogs in order for us to continue frog conservation around the world. So if you have any questions, you can mailed to me or yeah. So maraming salamat sa pakikinig and thank you for listening.
All right, a big thank you to Andrie Flores for educating us about Philippines amphibians and monitoring techniques earlier on as well. If anyone has any questions, send them in. I do believe we have one that comes from Earl Kevin Cooper, who says it was a great presentation. And I just want to ask, among the various sampling techniques, which would you recommend to be followed, and which one would be the least option to do so, the least preferred?
Um, Actually, all of these sampling techniques can work hand in hand in order for us to uh, generally take samples from the field. So, visual encounter survey can be accompanied by opportunistic search, and the acoustic survey can be used to the frogs that we can see, of course, in the field. And then the bell transect is generally a representative of how we can quantify the different distribution, abundance, and diversity of species in our area.
Thanks. I'll add to that one of the laws of frog surveys, probably any kind of wildlife survey, but certainly something that I thought about a lot during my PhD research. The more you look, the more you find. So if you can do multiple types of surveys, you're probably going to get more accurate information. If you can go out there for 5 nights instead of 2 nights, then you're going to get more accurate information. So it's also going to change per species, but generally a combination of these methods will get you the best information. All right, Andrie has his, or I've put up links to his Instagram. You can connect with him on email, Facebook, and I also put in a link to the Mindanao poster of endemic frogs that he created that we added to Save the Frogs Academy just about a week ago.